Hello and welcome to Noonday Meditation and Contemplative Prayer Power Hour. My name is Martin Coward, and I'm so excited that you've joined me today because I have my dear friend Jenn T Grace to come on and talk with us about her perspectives on how we might look at COVID-19 a little differently than maybe as something that's bad. Maybe there's a big blessing here. We've talked about that before here on this broadcast. So again, I'd like to ask that if you are joining us, please type your name into the chat box and just say hello so that we know that you are here. And remember, the purpose of this is we create a sanctuary, if you will. This is a refuge. There is no shortage of drama in this world right now. I mean, and it gets escalated every single day. And when the drama in our external world gets so loud and so busy, it has got to have an influence on our interior world. So we come together every day at noon to love and support each other and kind of resolve all that inner conflict, because we can get more at peace and feel more empowered if we're not pulled into all the drama of the world right now. And there is absolutely no shortage of that. And I can easily get pulled into it myself. So I am grateful for you coming today. Again, if you're here and you're joining us, please just type into the chat so we know you're here and we can say hello to you. Otherwise, I just see a number, and I'm glad to have you here, but I like to know who you are because it's nice to see you. So, Jenn, I will turn it over to you, and you can talk a little bit about what you do and all this kind of stuff. But let's start out with a question like this. What wonderful things are you learning about yourself during COVID-19 that you could share with our group today? Let's start with that question.
I love that question to start, because I think that, and I guess what I'm about to say, I feel like is coming from some recognition of privilege in all of what's happening with COVID, because I know that there's a lot of folks who are in very dire financial situations, or they're in dire housing situations. So there's a lot of people that I know are suffering immensely. However, I think for myself, I have been really using this time as such an opportunity to just kind of reflect on really everything about who I am and what I do in this world. And it's been so just really beautiful in a lot of ways. And I feel like I talk a lot about this lately, just because there's so much opportunity to reflect and go inward, because things are so much quieter, even though on the other side of that, they're not quiet at all. So it's like we're being pulled in two different directions, where we have this frenetic, crazy, dramatic, intense energy. And then there's this, hey, but I don't have to leave the house if I don't want to leave the house. And so I think it's every day we have to make a decision, and we have to make a choice. How are we going to show up in that particular day? And are we going to go down the path of being pulled in by whatever TV is on, and the politics and the news, and which I gave up TV. I gave up the news about a decade ago. Like I don't watch the news. It's just, even in good times, I have no interest, because it's just it like pulls you in too much. So for me, I feel like I've been doing really well, because I've just been really going inward and figuring out, like, how can I just be still? How can I help other people just kind of get more resilience to kind of get through these really crappy times that we're in? Mm-hmm. So for me, I think overall, I've been doing really well. And it's not to say I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm amazing. That's not true. Like, I certainly have my moments where I'm like, I want this to end. I'm really tired of it. I want things to go back to normal. But more often than not, I'm very grateful for this immense slowdown that we're experiencing collectively.
Yeah, I would agree. Hey, Audrey, how are you doing? Audrey is a fellow speaker, and she's a friend of mine at Toastmasters and the National Speakers Association, and she's a regular for our show.
Good. Hey, Audrey.
Gory, so glad to have you here, and thank you for saying hello. I appreciate that a lot. Yeah, I think that's it. I call it the big timeout. I look at it like Mother Nature said, okay, I created this beautiful paradise, this wonderful earth, full of abundance. There's nothing lacking. And I made you beautiful, miraculous human beings who are co-creators of this universe. And all you have done is fuss, complain, and fight.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's going to their room for a little while until they can come out and be grateful for what they have and change their attitude.
I hope that that's actually what happens. And I feel like I do have a lot of faith and hope that that will happen, that on the other side of this, people are going to view relationships differently, view their interactions with other people differently. And while, yes, it certainly seems to be more fighting than not currently, I'm hoping that the light wins over the darkness, because I feel like it's just, Mother Nature really, she has definitely put us in a timeout, and it's a well-deserved timeout. Like, we need to be in timeout right now.
Right.
So I think that a lot of people, I feel like, are going to come back more powerful than ever before, because they've been using this time to kind of really go inward and figure out, like, I think a lot of people are just evaluating their life and their purpose, and what they want to be doing, and what brings them joy, and what takes energy away from them, and making those conscious decisions, because now is the time to do that. Because if you think about how many obligations we have, whether it's networking obligations, family, friends, and it's not to say that you don't like your friends, but there are friends that kind of, their energy just kind of drags you down, or you have clients that drag you down, or that B&I group that you're a part of, but you don't really like. And so now is the time to be like, I'm putting me first. And I think we're in a place where it's acceptable to put yourself first, because we're being told, to not be out and about, not to be, in with other people. And it's like an opportunity to be like, you know what, I'm just not feeling it right now. I'm gonna lay low. And I think that's so beautiful, because we all have an excuse that is a valid and legitimate excuse, and no one's going to question it.
I am I'm loving that. And it's like, I as a prosperity coach, what I do is I teach people how to use spiritual principles and universal law to solve financial problems and to create wealth. Mm-hmm. And the primary principle that I rely on completely is what I would call self-love. Mm-hmm. And it was the one commandment that Jesus gave to the world, was to love you, to God, with all your heart and all your soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And he wasn't talking about the divine out in some concept of God we created maybe in Sunday school as children, but he's talking about the divine, our life. It could just easily say, and love your life with all your heart and all your soul. And that's what we're doing. We're taking the time to look inside ourselves and get to know that person, get to know who we truly are. Yeah. And I bet you're finding, I certainly am, I'm a pretty amazing guy. There's a divine part of me that's loving and creative and cares about people and enjoys being part of this world, particularly right now, because it's such an exciting time to be living in.
I totally agree. And what I find interesting is that every year, in December, I do my planning for the new year. And I usually come up with, most people come up with like a word of the year. I am a little bit of a type A, and I like to get things done. So I pick up multiple words for the year. And so this
year,
you're
a book publisher.
Right? I know. I definitely have no shortage of words in my world. And I came up with surrender, freedom, and self-love were my 3 words for 2020.
I love that.
And I feel like I have done nothing but all of those things throughout this. And I actually question, without COVID, how much would I have stuck to that commitment to myself on those 3 fronts? And with COVID, I think it's I don't want to say it's relatively easy, but it's easier, because again, we have those opportunities to slow down and reflect. And it's not to say that I feel like my life is like I have an abundance of free time, because I certainly don't, but I do have different ways in which my time is structured, because I'm not driving to meetings across the state, or I'm not traveling and gone at a conference for a week and things like that. So, I think that there's just so much abundance. And I love the whole idea of self-love, because I feel like if you can't love yourself now, like when are you going to be able to, because I feel like we have to be so forgiving of ourselves right now. And so many of us are so hard on ourselves and hard on other people. And I think we're just kind of swirling around in this space of judgment, where there's just a lot of judgment that's kind of happening right now. And it's like, it's not for me to say how you handle COVID. It's not for you to say how I'm handling it. We all kind of, we just have to have that mutual respect for one another to just kind of, go deep and do what we need to do for us.
Yeah, exactly. I want to go back. I love those 3 words: surrender, freedom, and self-love.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit. Help. We hear surrender a lot, and I use it a lot. It's certainly one of the. It's the center of contemplative prayer. But I'd like to hear your perspective on that word surrender. What does that mean for you to surrender? What are you surrendering, and what are you surrendering to?
Ooh, such a good question that I have not actually fully thought through until right now while we're live.
Good.
May as well think of it on the spot. So for me, right? So I published my memoir, which is called House on Fire. It technically came out in September, but it kind of came out a little bit earlier than that. And for me, writing my memoir was that was the ultimate act of self-love. And this is for anyone who's writing their story, because it is not an easy task. It is not an easy road. It's very rewarding. And I swear I got like years worth of therapy just by writing this book, but it's not an easy task. So for me, a lot of it, like one of the things that I was thinking about when I was saying I'm going to surrender in 2020, a lot of it was actually around that process. Because as someone who is, self-identified as a type A person, someone who is constantly on the move and getting things done, and my reputation is kind of like hinged on the fact that I get things done. So like there's kind of like a higher expectation of me because I've created that for myself. So, and I don't mind it. However, I think sometimes we have to slow down and just surrender to the process and surrender to what is around us. So for me, which was very, very difficult, was I show people, I teach people, I work with people, I publish books. Like I'm always helping people get their stories out there. And so much a part of that is, how do we make this make money for you? We want to tell your story, but what is the financial ROI on what you're doing? And yes, it can be just kind of a passion project. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not my focus. My focus is, how do we get a return on your investment? So for me, putting out my own memoir, I had to surrender to not thinking about the ROI, because that's where my mind goes automatically. It's like, how is this going to make money back? How am I using this? What am I doing it for? And so much of that was, I am surrendering the entirety of this book. Instead of me forcing what I want the book to do, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to listen for the book to tell me what it wants me to do.
I love it. I love that.
Which is so polar extremes of my operating system at my core. So a lot of the surrender was specifically around like that. And then it just kind of bled into other areas of life of like, I don't have to be the one in control. I can just sit back and let the universe bring to me what I'm supposed to, like the message I'm supposed to receive now, rather than forcing things.
That is a wonderful way of looking at that. I think that surrender is the key to, it's really, to me, it's surrendering the ego's mind, the egoic mind. It's surrendering the ego. The ego is a part of you and a part of me that says, I got to get this done. I got to make money. It's got blah, 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 blah. Yep. And it's like, wait a minute. First of all, I'm not in control of anything. One of the things that I had realized in COVID-19, I control nothing. None of us control anything. I can't control the next 5 minutes. I certainly can't control the next year. But what I can do is surrender, not to another person, but to surrender to that divine part of me, the part that is helping, the part that you're listening to write that book, is the part that I listen to when I put out the things that we do. That's what I would say I've learned, is that there's a divine presence within us if we're willing to sit still long enough and surrender our ego to it. And I call that divine presence Joy the Wise Woman. So when Joy the Wise Woman is available, and she is, and that's what I start my day with, and that's what we come here for, is to bring her into presence, bring her into consciousness. And that's probably the biggest thing that I've always kind of like thought of this a little bit, maybe as an intellectual exercise. I mean, I've been a contemplative for 40 years, but for example, I wouldn't let God get too involved with my money making. I was going to hold on to that until it almost put me into bankruptcy. And finally, I had to surrender that. To that. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to make money. I don't know. And all of a sudden, Joy the Wise Woman came in and she showed me how to do it. And she shows me now every day how to do it. She showed you whatever you call her or hit, that part of you that's helped you write that memoir. So that's a beautiful, and that's what I encourage people who are listening to us today, is your ego is always trying to pull us into negativity. It's always telling us it's not enough and we need to make money and we need whatever it's always pulling us into drama. So the point is to surrender that. Just, I can't, it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
I let go of it. And you'll begin and wake up that higher operating system, is the Reverend Cynthia Bourget says. We have the lower operating system of our human mind, which is binary, and we need that to navigate in the world. But there's a much higher operating system within us that's creative, intelligent, far more intelligent than the mind in my head that it created.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's our reptilian brain, right?
Yes.
It's our reptilian brain that's running the show, and we have to kind of elevate ourselves above it and be able to talk down to it, be like, no, you're not controlling this right now. Or at the very least, just acknowledging that you're having a negative thought and then releasing it. Because I think that a lot of people just kind of struggle with the acknowledgement and then the release. Like we acknowledge it and then we stew on it and then we kind of spiral downward out of control. When really we can just be like, listen, like, I hear you and I know you're there for my survival, but I don't need your tone right now.
Right. Get off my playing field, please. So now that you have surrendered the control of your life, you're now free to let life live through you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've been doing all sorts of a whole litany of different things, but I've been on a spiritual quest for a couple of years now. It's actually how I kind of end my memoir, is like really kind of, I would say I'm spiritual, but not religious, but that does not mean that I don't respect those who are religious or religions. And I've been just down many different rabbit holes just around just abundance and mindset. And it's not to say that I have not researched these things, thought these things before, but there's something about now that feels even more compelling to really kind of draw it up from within rather than pulling it from external forces. And so it's been, all of it has just been like really interesting, because it's like, there's the law of attraction. There's The Secret, like there was a hit back in 2008 or whenever that was. And it's like, there is validity to what is being said in all of those different types of works. And if you look at any different things, any different type of religion and spiritual teachings, like it's all there, but we have to have that core belief in ourselves that we can either do it or we're going to get through it or whatever the thing is. And I think for me, and I do write about this a little bit in my book, is just this always knowing for me. And I know some people hate this phrase, but everything happens for a reason. I know some people really hate it. For me, it was truly a survival mechanism to get through a lot of bullshit in my life, to know that it's happening for some greater purpose. But I never actually thought through who the greater purpose was tied to, or what the greater purpose was tied to. It was always just like, everything happens for a reason. Like, oh, this horrible thing happened. It happened for a reason. This horrible thing happened. Like, all right, I don't know what you're trying to get me to pay attention to, but I'm listening. And so what's really interesting, and I feel like you'll appreciate this, is that, again, I've had a lot go on in my life, to say the least. And I put it all in my book to free myself, to like fully free myself from that isolating feeling of feeling alone and kind of like being trapped with like your inner darkness and the inner secrets and all of the shame and the guilt and all of the stuff. So I feel so free, again, like freedom being one of my core words this year, for having put my story out there. Whether people read it or not, that's up to them. Like I'm surrendering that piece. I'm not controlling that piece. But what's been so cool is that I have this sense of just lightness. Like I feel physically lighter for having released myself from the baggage of my own past. But at the same time, I bought a house recently, which I don't advise doing in the middle of a pandemic, for the record. That was, I could have picked a different time to do this. But my house got struck by lightning. And so my brand new house, mind you. And this was in August. So it wasn't that long ago. It was like the end of August. And I was sitting in my sunroom, actually on a call with a bunch of authors. And the lightning bolt came down and struck about 20 feet directly in front of me. And I could see like the width of the lightning bolt. I was that close to it. And it hit a tree in the yard. And there's a big hole, like the trees burned. There's like a hole in the ground. It was a whole thing.
Oh, my Lord.
It was intense, to say
I would say so.
Very intense, but I felt so grateful in that moment that it didn't hit me. I was sitting like 20 feet from it, probably not even 20 feet. It didn't hit the metal sunroom that I was in. Like it didn't knock the tree down. Like it did fry my laptop charger, my phone charger, the cable, the modem, all the things. So it fried a lot of devices, but I'm alive. But what I took from that was, this is now like the ultimate sign from the universe. And I took it as like, and now we're done. Like, this is the exclamation point on everything before today. It's almost like an AC and BC, right? So like, this is my like after of all the things. And so it's just really cool that when you listen to things, like somebody could have taken like, you almost got killed by a lightning strike as like this horrible thing. And for me, I'm like, it felt so liberating to be like, this is the universe saying like, we're done here. Like, all of your past is now behind you, and there's nothing but positivity and good stuff moving forward, even in the middle of a pandemic. And I have taken that to heart in such an intense way. And the universe is showing up every single day in terms of abundance, with new people to work with, new engaging conversations, new friendships, just all like, there's nothing but abundance around me right now. And I'm convinced it's all in your mindset and how you look at certain situations. Because I easily could have, retreated into a corner being like, I'm doomed, I'm cursed, the universe hates me, they're trying to strike me dead. But that's not the meaning I took behind any of it. And so it's just so kind of cool to experience.
Yeah, it certainly woke you up to the truth of who you are, that you are infinite.
Mm-hmm.
And even if, and thank God you're still here humanly, but since I've had certain awakening moments in my life too, and I remember one time, and I don't know if you had this or not, but I can say, but you might have had something. I'm hearing something like this. That one day I was in my kitchen, and all of a sudden I had this moment where I realized that I was timeless, and I said, if I'm timeless, I'm actually already physically dead, and this is what it feels like, and it's perfectly okay. It's like I could see I could see me in the kitchen as Martin cooking dinner, but I was also completely outside myself watching me do it. Yeah. And it was just like energy. And I was like, well, this is certainly fascinating.
Yeah.
Where did this come from? And then I wanted it to come back. And it went
I know. And then it's like, how do you channel that again? Like, how do you
it's like, once you realize it, you're like, well, where did you go? But it does take away the fear of death.
I think so. And I've had a number of near-death experiences. So this is certainly this doesn't even rank in my top 10, and I'm not even exaggerating. But like, I actually had something, and I don't know what to call this, and I haven't actually said this to anyone since it happened, but it happened about 3 weeks ago, and I was driving on the highway, and I felt like, and I honestly don't know how to describe it. I was driving in the present day, but for like a 10-second blip, I felt like I was actually in the past. And it sounds completely insane, but I legitimately felt like I time traveled for a minute. Like, it was almost like, because like you have like a memory and it's a flashback and you're like, but it's very one-dimensional, where it's like, it's almost like an image, or maybe there's a song or someone's voice or something like that. This felt so three-dimensional that I legitimately felt like, as I was driving down this road, that I had been driving down that same exact, and it wasn't deja vu, but I had been driving down that same road before, like 20 years ago. And it was the most crazy feeling, but I'm like, this is amazing, and I want to figure out how I did this and do it again.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? I call those little peek holes into heaven, into the universe, and they just kind of come out of nowhere, or after a lightning strikes you, or comes within 20 feet of you, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I hope you don't have to have lightning to bring that back again.
No, but it's almost like tapping into the quantum field. Like, I'm so fascinated by just quantum physics in general. I don't fully understand it, so I would never try to explain it. But like, I'm fascinated by the concept of it. And it just felt like that for a moment. And I'm like, well, there's got to be a way to do this. And now I'm like, oh my God, I'm hooked. But I don't even know what the thing is or how it happened. But it was really cool.
You talked about, I want to just pivot a little bit away, the importance of daily meditation. Mm-hmm. And you said earlier that you have you're not particularly religious, but you have in the last few years really discovered yourself, who you are spiritually. I mean, I call that the intimate self. I call that the authentic self. Tell me a little bit about how meditation has helped you access that part of yourself, the wisdom of the divine, you say, talk about.
Yeah. So for context, about it was in 2018. I went 192 days without sleeping. So I had it was stress related in terms of like my cortisol levels were off the charts. Like my body physically wouldn't allow me to sleep. If I was able to sleep for like 20 minutes, I was lucky. You know, some nights I'd maybe get like an hour and a half of sleep and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I went from April to October of 2018 without sleeping at all. And I was an absolute train wreck to say the least. So trying to run a company, not helpful when you're practically incoherent. One of the blessings I would say that I took from that experience, though, was that you get really clear on what's a priority in your day when you have like such a finite period of time in your day to be functional. And so I started looking at any way I could find a way to sleep. And I'm not a big fan of pharmaceuticals. I know they're life-saving for so many people. I'm personally not. I don't like them for me. So I reluctantly went kicking and screaming and tried every type of, first over the counter, that was useless. Then I tried all of like the heavy sleep medications. Nothing worked. And my APRN was like, this should like tranquilize a horse. I don't really understand why it's not even making a dent into your problem. And so from a recommendation of a friend, she's like, have you tried meditating? I was like, I haven't, but I literally will do anything at this point to sleep again. And so she recommended I do transcendental meditation. So TM is what it's usually referred to as. And so I learned that in, I think it was probably May or June, it might've been June. And I went and I took their course in their program and I started to sleep a little bit, but this still was like max was like maybe an hour and a half at the most. So to go from like 20-minute cat nap to an hour and a half of sleep was actually like a huge, huge accomplishment. But I have kept up that practice because it has, even though I wasn't physically sleeping, because I was really a complete train wreck, I had energy because of the meditation. And I think that is the only way I actually survived getting through all of that and actually coming out the other side like a completely different and better person as a result, was just the amount of energy that I think meditation can kind of bring to you.
Yes.
And I think it's like multiple levels too. It's like your immediate energy where it's like you're just kind of taking that, 20, 23 minutes to just kind of like sit and go within and kind of come back restored twice a day. But then there's another layer of energy beneath that where you're like channeling some kind of wisdom from somewhere. And again, whatever people want to call it, the divine, God, universe, source, any of those terms, it's like you're just channeling something so much deeper than you that it makes you feel more powerful in your current situation. So I started, I want to say it was probably the middle of June. And I started sleeping again. It still took me until October, but it's a practice that I maintain today. So I still do the TM, even though you're supposed to do it twice a day. I only do it once a day because I use Insight Timer at night. And I love Insight Timer because they have just thousands upon thousands of different meditations, like whether it's something that you're trying to heal some kind of PTSD, or you're trying to get rid of guilt and shame around something, or you want to connect with your spirit guides. Like there's a meditation for anything you could possibly ever imagine and think of. And so I think that there's something so magical about just slowing yourself down, even if it's for 10 minutes a day, to just think of like, what do I want? And what is my body telling me it needs? Because I think we are operating from our head so often that we're not actually slowing down and thinking, what does my body actually want from me? Because I think there's a lot of people that end up getting really, really sick and they didn't see it coming. And I think it's because we're so disconnected from what our bodies are constantly trying to warn us and tell us about different things. And we're so removed from them that we don't even pay attention until it's too late. And there's some horrible thing that's kind of happening to us because we didn't pay attention sooner. And so I think that meditation in a lot of ways kind of helps on that front too, where it's like you're slowing down. So you're listening to the creaking or the cracking of your bones, or, like you can just feel like your heart palpitating in a different way, which is not normal. And it might prompt you to be like, maybe I should make an appointment with the doctor, and like really just kind of like navigating in that way. So it's not just on the spiritual side of things, but there is a practical element to how beneficial meditation can be for just your overall general health.
Oh yeah. I think it's the only way to really get of self-love. It is the ultimate act of self-love. And we create we have the creator in us. The binary brain is just, is just it's a recording device. Basically, it's not creative. It learns. It's very clever. It's not very intelligent, but it's very clever. And so we need to tap into that. And we're often creating and doing things in the world without even thinking about it, because it's online and it's plugged in. It's when we are faced with challenging situations that are fearful that all of a sudden we get blocked from it and we get afraid, and then all of a sudden we go into this ego thinking mind of not enough, I'm not good enough, all this stuff that's planning in our head, and we get all frantic and full of anxiety and we can't sleep and all kinds of things happen to us. But if we get quiet, surrender, let go of that, then we can fall into a deeper operating system within ourselves, which I call Joy the wise woman. And then we become creators. We write memoirs. We create podcasts. Or we do live. I mean, I would have never thought a year ago that I would be doing this grounds me every day.
Yeah.
And my ego will come and say, how are you going to make any money getting on there every day and doing this live meditation content? I said, I don't know. It's not about making money. Number one, it's about creating space for all of us to get through this pandemic. And it feels like my Joy the Wise Woman is behind this. And I feel like whatever she's telling me to do, I'm going to do it, because it always works out pretty good.
Yeah. And I think to me, that's kind of what's happening with COVID, right? So we have been operating from a different operating system, and COVID has forced people to think about operating in a different operating system that you, as a financial planner, financial mystic, a person who leads people to their financial wellness, to be doing something that you know may not give you a return quickly. There's something so powerful in that, because it's not about the money so often. And I think that it's beautiful right now. And one of the big takeaways I have is that our drive and need for perfection hasn't vanished by any stretch. Do not get me wrong. But there is something so beautiful about being able to show up. And if I had shown up today on this call and I was just having a rough morning, and you and I were talking before we went live, and I was like, listen, I'm not myself today, you would have been completely fine with that. You wouldn't have been like, oh Lord, the whole show is a bust now. But in the past, pre-COVID times, I do think that would be a deal breaker for somebody, that you only want to talk to people when they're on their A game. But I think so many people, if they're lucky, if they're on a C game right now, and we're not judging people on that particular front. And that is so freeing and amazing to me.
Yeah, we're not judging ourselves or other people so much on what we are externally, from the exterior perspective, because we have learned to know a deeper, more profound part of ourselves that's judgment free. That's unconditional love, So we've gotten into that place within ourselves, and I love the way you've articulated this for us today, and it's been really helpful, because I love doing it. And I'm so glad you came on and joined me today. It's 30 minutes after the hour, so I want to give some time for some meditation, and I will lead us through that. And again, I'm going to speak to you and everybody else. Please stick around for the meditation, because as good as what we are trying to tell you and listen to, and I appreciate that, you've got your own you've got your own Joy the Wise Woman. You've got your own wisdom inside you. And that's the point of meditation, whether it's transcendental meditation or what we do here is I teach a form of prayer called centering prayer. And what that involves is, because this is what I want to do all day. You talked about surrendering. It's about getting still and letting go of our thoughts and our beliefs and our opinions, all that story of the ego thinking mind that keeps us stuck in and paralyzed in fear and drama and all kinds of stuff. We actually surrender it, and we get still and surrender all that, and then we listen to that deeper voice within ourselves for some guidance, and to guide us through this pandemic, to guide us through that darkness. And some people say it's like magic. I said it is magic. It is like I think Einstein said, either everything is a miracle or nothing is a miracle. And I would say it's both. I would say everything that you see is created out of nothingness. And that's what this is. It is the formless, still void of the universe. It's space. It's all, so we put space around. The ego it wants to fill everything up. So when you put space around your thoughts and your opinions and your judgments, you're not quite so attached to them.
Yeah.
And then you've got we got some. So that's what we're. That's what we're going to be doing in the next 20 minutes. That's the whole concept of meditation. Is what I teach and what I do here, and for myself and for others, is teach them that form of. It's called letting go. And then what happens to me during the day? I'll catch myself just walking down the street or being distracted, and I'm like, I'm walking down the street on a beautiful day, but my mind is somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, Martin, just let the thought go. Don't think it, feel it. Feel it. Oh, all of a sudden, then I'm back. And I'm like back in the moment.
Yep.
And so by coming together for 20 minutes and just doing it, then I've got the practice in place. So throughout the day, I'm able to kind of catch myself getting distracted from the past into the past and in the future and getting all pulled into that stuff. And then I can let it go, surrender it, I love that word, and be present to that moment. And it's just a more exciting way to live.
I fully agree. I echo everything you just said.
That's why you're picked up on my show, because you're going to. It's just what it is, and I think we do agree. And it's nice to be in sync on that. So let's. I'm gonna set the insight timer.
Yes.
And what I like about the insight timer is the interval bells.
Yes. Oh,
because
insight timer's the best.
Oh, they're the best thing. So the interval bell. And the reason we like the interval bell is that, let me figure out why I can't save. I had to put the volume correctly. Is that we think we're meditating, but the ego is clever. And it will find a thought that it knows you think is good, a good thought. Maybe it's a thought from the Joy of the Wise Woman, and it will attach to it, and it will take you deeper into it, and that's okay, but not now. Yeah. So the interval bell is to wake us up and reset and go back into the emptiness, the formless, the divine within ourselves, to listen for another new thought, and then we'll get another interval bell, and it'll wake us up again.
Yeah.
So that's why we do that. So let's start with raising our. Let me turn the bell on. Let's raise our arms in the air, and just hold them there for a minute. Just put your arms up and just feel what it's like to be inside your hands.
Yes.
Feel that life force energy within your hands. That's as far as you have to go to find the divine in you. It is that life force. I don't care how big your muscles are. If that life wasn't alive, that spark wasn't in you, there would not move at all. So be grateful that just feel and embody the spirit of the divine life force within us. And it is magnificent. When you put your arms down and get comfortable, begin to quiet the mind. Maybe you want to focus on the breath for a few moments, the in breath and the out breath. Sometimes it helps to sort of see the breath as a circle coming in into your nose, down into your lungs, and filling up your heart with air and mixing with your blood, coming back up and going back out, and just kind of get into the cycle, the circular cycle of breathing, and allow the mind to just be focused on that natural, automatic happening that happens all the time. Just bring your mind to that breath for a moment. And as you bring the mind to the breath, consciously begin to, as the breath comes down from your head and into your heart, bring all those thoughts with it. Surrender, let go of every single thought, every opinion, every belief, every judgment, every story. Just let it go. With intention, let those things go. They're all objects, and just let them go. They're going to come back, and as they come back up, let them go again. Thoughts will come up, drop them, and let them go. Thoughts will come up, and let them go. Hold on to nothing. Hold on to whatever you believe is good or bad, right or wrong. Hold on to nothing, and allow yourself to just fall back into the beautiful emptiness under the cloud of forgetting and into the sweet cloud of unknowing. I don't know and I don't control and I don't need to know. I just need to be still and sit here in a place of love and gratitude for being alive and listen into the silence. Allow the sound of the bell to wake you up from any trance you're in. Let it go. Any thoughts that you were deep in, let it go and come back into meditation. Just fall back into love. Wake up from a trance, drop the thought, fall back into love. Wake up. Let go. Fall back. One more time. You might even expand your heart a little bit wider and breathe a deep breath and let it go. And just open your heart to receiving love of the universe. And that was the final bell. Come
Ready
back.
for now?
Sometimes we do fall asleep. I do. I get so relaxed, I just fall asleep.
Mhm.
Wake up. Yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
oh, should be doing something.
Something's happening. And so thank you for joining me in that. So if you got something you want to comment on before we from out in the world out there, please do. And Jenn, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing what you're doing uh, to what you're learning about yourself, and you're empowering yourself through this pandemic, and how you're sharing that with the world to empower themselves. So that's what we do.
Thank you.
And I will say that there's nothing more powerful than the sharing of stories.
I agree.
And in the 9 months that I was working at Ground Zero, let's see what Audrey has to say here.
You're very welcome, Audrey. Young lady, I'm going to keep taking that for as long as I can.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It is true. It is absolutely true. Yeah, it's just this is just such a nice refuge for me every day, and it's such a joy to share this space with you today, Jenn. Thank you so much thank you so much for joining us and sharing your stories. And that's what we do. We share our stories, and that's how we heal. And we take those secrets, those dark secrets out, and we put them out in the world, and they no longer have power over us.
That's why I love publishing books, because
I know.
those who are writing it and those who are reading it.
Yeah, it's all about sharing those stories in a powerful way and communicating that. And as speakers and as writers, we all love those opportunities. So, and I encourage you, if you're out in the world, to sit down right now and just take 10 minutes and just get in your journal and start writing a little bit about how you're feeling right now. What's going on for you today, and how are you experiencing this day during the pandemic, this moment during the pandemic, and what are you learning about yourself? So thank you for joining us. Her name is Jenn T. Grace. Jenn, before we have, why don't you tell Audrey, maybe people might be interested in knowing a little bit about what you do, how they can find you, because you do have people share their stories, and Audrey's a wonderful storyteller. So why don't you tell us a little bit before we close out of how people can find you and get in touch with you in the future?
Yeah, you bet. So you can I have 2 websites. You can go to jenntgrace.com. It's Jenn with 2 N's. That throws people off. And then publishyourpurposepress.com, which is a tongue twister and long, but that is our publishing site that has all of the goodness and the richness of other people's stories that I feel privileged and fortunate enough to share in this world.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that with us. And again, thank you. If you can stick around for 1 minute when we close out, just want to thank you personally. And Audrey, thank you so much for coming and joining me again today, and joining Jenn and I today. It's just been a joy always to have you in contact with us. So thank you for that. And I will see you here tomorrow, and may love and prosperity continue to prevail in all the world.